All right. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
It is 9:30, January 20, beautiful winter day in Michigan. Want to thank the Road Commission for the excellent job. Those guys are working through the night, and that is not an easy job. Want to thank them for what they're doing, and also just acknowledge the Sheriff's Department of what they accomplished yesterday with the tragedy that happened with that 100-plus car pileup. So just want to pass on some gratitude. That is a long and arduous task, and I think Hudsonville actually stepped up with their high school and used their school buses to help get those people off the road to safety and get them warmed up and back to their families. So it's great to see the community come together. It really is. And the assets of the county and the township and the school district all work hand in hand. So a lot of positive there. To get us started, we're going to go to public comment. So if you would, this is your chance to come and speak. You have 3 minutes. If you give us your name and where you vote, that'll get us going. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Angela Westfield. I'm a 40-plus year resident of Ottawa County, and I vote in Precinct 12. I'm Vice President of Global Distribution and Supply Chain Operations for Miller Knoll. I serve as a Global Ambassador for the Miller Knoll Foundation, and I am Treasurer of the Board of Directors for Good Samaritan. I'm here to urge you to support and approve funding for the Eviction Prevention Program to support our community through fiscal responsibility, family well-being, and workforce stability. Eviction prevention is not just a housing issue. It's a fiscal and community stability issue. Communities that invest in prevention spend less money over time, as eviction prevention stops crisis as it reaches our most costly systems. For example, emergency shelter use, court administration and sheriff services, healthcare and crisis response, and child welfare involvement. Most households facing eviction are working families, often triggered by a temporary hardship, a medical bill, reduced work hours, a job transition, or an unexpected expense. As a result, there can also be an impact on children and schools, which may force children to change schools mid-year, miss class, and fall behind academically. These families need short-term support, typically not long-term assistance. Stable housing also helps retain employees. The high housing costs and instability in our county make recruitment and retention harder, particularly for low-wage positions, a core workforce issue. Without stability, workers may relocate, leave jobs, or have irregular attendance, increasing costs for local employers. Post-pandemic, local businesses are still struggling to secure and retain skilled employees. In closing, eviction prevention is critical because once a family loses housing, the costs to the entire community escalate immediately, overwhelming shelters, courts, schools, and healthcare systems. Acting early to keep people housed is not optional. It is fast and most effective to stop a preventable crisis from spreading to neighborhoods and generations to come. The Miller Knoll Foundation prioritizes and fosters access to resources so that all community members can reach their full potential. With this, the Miller Knoll Foundation will be forming a strategic partnership with Good Samaritan to help support the eviction prevention program effort financially. I strongly encourage you, the commissioners, to continue your financial support to the eviction prevention program. Eviction prevention works best when public and philanthropic resources are aligned. Pooling our expertise and funding enables faster, more effective interventions that protect residents and reduce long-term public costs. And with that, I thank you for your time and your service.
Thank you, Angela. Ms. Patrick, welcome this morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Becky Pattendale. I wrote to you a few days ago regarding the eviction prevention program you're discussing this morning and laid out the reasons why I believe it's worth your support. So I won't rehash all that here this morning. The only additional thing I wanted to offer is that in addition to being fiscally responsible with county tax dollars, by supporting this proposal, you also have an opportunity to let hardworking people know that you have their backs if, through circumstances outside of their control, they find themselves facing a situation that could literally make it impossible for them to ever rent a home again. For that reason, in addition to a number of others that you'll hear this morning, I urge you to support that proposal. And what she just said. Thank you for your consideration of this proposal and my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Patrick. Anyone else? This is your last chance this morning. Great.
Good morning. My name is Christina Fort. I'm the director of the Lakeshore Housing Alliance of Ottawa County, and like to offer public comment on the eviction prevention program. Members of the Finance Committee, I'm urging you to approve the ARPA funding to sustain the Ottawa County Eviction Prevention Program, one of the most effective housing stability strategies we have. Good Samaritan reports that the program fields over 4,000 hotline calls each year and provides direct assistance to roughly 1,000 households in crisis. Most importantly, data presented to this committee shows that the program has produced 98% in housing stability, meaning nearly all households served remain housed rather than entering homelessness. Few prevention programs in Michigan can point to the outcomes this strong. The need continues to grow. Rising rents and a shortage of affordable units are pushing more families into instability. Ottawa County's average monthly rent is higher than surrounding counties, and recent housing assessments show a shortfall of 2,300 units for households earning under $50,000 a year. When families fall behind, the ripple effects, court involvement, job loss, and child instability create a far higher downstream of public costs than prevention. The program is also facing a critical funding cliff. As of June 2025, it can no longer add households to its wait list, and current funds are projected to run out without new investment. The modest amount in allocation would prevent the shutdown of an already proven intervention. This investment keeps families housed, supports landlords, reduces court burden, and protects our workforce, which is vital to our community, while preventing far greater expense of homelessness. I respectfully ask you to approve the ARPA request to continue this life-stabilizing program, and thank you so much for your consideration and the work that you continue to do in Ottawa County.
Thank you. Good morning. Welcome.
Morning. My name is Sarah Elliott, and I live in the city of Grand Haven. More importantly, I'm the McKinney-Vento liaison for Grand Haven Area Public Schools. And for those of you not familiar with that title, that is federal legislation for the Homeless Education Assistance Act. So I work with families in the schools who have become homeless. I spent my morning checking in on my families who are living in campgrounds at this point. Think of that as driving in. There are people in our county living in campgrounds. The median rent for a two-bedroom apartment in Ottawa County in 2020 was $1,016, and the fair market rent in 2020 was $1,226. The median rent for a two-bedroom in 2025 is between $1,700 and $1,900, with a fair market rent of $1,300. Food prices have jumped 30% in the last 5 years, and we have over 10,000 renters in Ottawa County paying more than 30% of their income to rent. Until we're able to capture this, we need support, as the people before me have shared, and I walk with these families. It is one medical bill. It is a car that is in need of repair. They're working very hard, and we need these supports. I look in the faces of the children who are impacted. They lose at least 3 to 6 months of learning every time there's a move. And I'm working with families. This is their third school of the school year already. The consequences are major, and I have seen firsthand the benefit of this. A family who received help 3 years ago is on track to get their own place, not rent, their own place, because there were caring people who came behind and were able to provide the support. Prevention is key, and I urge you to utilize funds for this effort. The process is looking for sustainability. They're not throwing money to landlords who are just going to evict them the next month. We really look to families who this is going to be take that rock and get it out of the way to keep them moving forward. This is progress, prevention, and community sustainability at its best. I thank you very much for your attention to this matter, and I urge you to think carefully about it and to support it. Thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Susan Franklin. I'm the Circuit and Probate Court Administrator here in Ottawa County. And the first thing I want to say is to set Patrick and Karen at ease that I'm not here to ask for money. Other than that, we'll see how it goes.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. if you're
Not
lucky.
at this particular moment.
Okay.
Andy Brown from the Recovery Court and I are here to talk to you about the Ottawa County Recovery Court, which had some stress put on it last week, as you may have heard about the thankfully brief cancellation of the SAMHSA grants. And I do want to say too that we were looking very deep when that happened. And due to the great fiscal management of Andy and the great leadership of Judge Dahlman, who's our presiding judge of the Recovery Court, we were able to continue despite seeing that grant dissipate before our eyes. Thankfully, it did not. That action was reversed. But we were looking at some tough cuts to the program, but we were definitely steadfast in the belief that the program must continue. So I do want to let Andy speak a little bit more about the program and that experience, because of course he felt it most deeply. We got some crazy emails at midnight that night as we were finding out about all this, but I'll let him speak to that a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you for coming in this morning.
Yeah, good morning. Andy Brown with the Circuit Court, recovering from a peptic ulcer from last week's stress. I'm the program director for the Ottawa County Recovery Court. We're a jail and prison diversion program. We work with high-risk defendants with substance use and mental health disorders. Our program has been operating for 22 years. Uniquely, we have been, and for now, remain 100% grant funded. Our funding comes through state and federal grants being the most instrumental to our survival. In November and December of 2024, we had the opportunity to work with the previous Board of Commissioners, many of whom are still seated here today, and established a contingency fund available for our program should we lose grant funding. In the world of federal grant making, the past 13 months have been unprecedented. Beginning last March 2025, federal grant funding direct to programs such as ours, nonprofits, policy think tanks, universities were abruptly terminated. We survived that round of cuts. Next, the predictable schedule of releasing federal grant opportunities was paused. Almost no federal grant applications were released in 2025 across all federal departments, maybe 5 to 10% of what is normally released. And this continues as of this date. Last week, Tuesday, January 13, I received an email shortly after 10:30 p.m. I checked my emails because I'm a diligent employee at 11:15 to see a title of an email from the Federal Department of Health and Human Services notifying me that our grant award from SAMHSA was being terminated. And that no expenses starting January 14 onward could be expensed to the grant. Which meant at midnight, I was calling the director of our treatment providers to terminate service contracts. I had an employee that I had to lay off. He woke up at 6 a.m. to a text from me saying he literally did not have a job that day. As Wednesday, January 14 unrolled, we learned through national news that we were one of nearly 3,000 grantees that were arbitrarily and abruptly terminated. Following national outcry and bipartisan congressional pressure, grant funding was restored by early afternoon, Thursday, January 15. It was a 2-day roller coaster, certainly the whiplash of which is certainly going to be remembered. The unpredictable business practices of the federal government over the past 13 months have put our program in the most precarious funding position we've been in the 16 years that I've been at the helm. First, I just want to make the committee and the board as a whole aware of this. Second, it means that we may have to tap into contingency funds sooner than anticipated. And I'm at the, which could be as early as the fourth quarter of this fiscal year. As was agreed upon in the fall of 2024, I would exhaust all opportunities to obtain grant funding before we have to begin use of the contingency funds. Regrettably, we find ourselves in a position where new federal grant funding simply was not made in 2025. There's strong concern and reason to believe that we're not going to see federal grants released this year in 2026. So I know public comment is not the time for question and answer. However, should any board members want or need additional information, I can answer those questions.
Yeah, thank you for that. Anyone else this morning? For those of you that braved the weather to come and speak on behalf of the eviction prevention program, thank you for your time this morning, your words, it was heard. And thank you to the groups that support you so that you can do the work that you do. So glad that you showed up. We will be having some conversation towards the end of the agenda on this topic, if you haven't seen the agenda. So yeah, thank you. We're gonna move on to the business of the board. So commissioners, let's get to work. The first up is the approval of the agenda. All in favor of approving the agenda this morning, say aye.
Aye.
You need a motion first, please.
So moved. Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Moving on to consent resolutions. The consent resolution is to approve the minutes from the December 9, 2025 Finance and Administration Committee meeting.
So moved. Support.
All in favor, say aye. All right. Next up, for an action item is the election of a committee vice chair. And we'll get this started this morning. Do I have a motion to elect a vice chairman of the Finance and Administration Committee for 2026?
Chair, I would like to nominate John Teeples for vice chair.
Vote for Teeples. Any other comments this morning? Well, I would like to comment. I'd like to thank Doug Zylstra. Doug served as vice chair last year. And it was about this time last year that you graciously invited me into your house and we sat down at your dinner table and thought through what we wanted to work on. And we did.
I thought we did a good job, so.
We did, yeah.
Great leadership last year and look forward to it this year.
Absolutely. One of the main things that we both found a lot of agreement on was to showcase the fine work that our ARPA funds accomplished. And so we were able to bring a lot of those organizations to the Finance Administration meeting all throughout last year to give updates and help us understand better of how they put our tax dollars to work. And I thought that was really beneficial, and I think the board did too. So I'm glad that we did that. There's quite a bit of work to get done this year again, so I always appreciate Doug's contributions and want to thank him for his service last year. So not hearing any other names, the motion will be to elect John Teeples as vice chair of the Finance and Administration Committee for 2026. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations, Mr. Teeples. Look forward to serving with you. All right, moving forward, the statement of review. The suggested motion is to approve the statement of review.
So moved. Support. Stop it.
All right, let's make Jordan my second. Then we don't have to wrestle over it going forward. That makes sense. So this one, we do need to call the roll.
Mr. Barry,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Teeples,
Yes.
Mr. Georgezma,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema,
Yes.
motion passes.
Wonderful. Moving on to number 3 on the agenda is the Sheriff's Office scheduling software. The suggested motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the contract with NeoGov for scheduling software at a cost of $89,245.30.
So moved. Support.
Great. I see the sheriff has joined us this morning. I hope you got some sleep in the last 24 hours. I know you've been absolutely.
Oh, I'm fine. The men and women of the sheriff's department are the one that need to sleep. They spent most of the day out on the highway yesterday, so. But a great outpouring of support from the community in general, and a lot of good work done out there by our emergency management group and our road patrol, and then our partners in fire and tow companies and ambulances. So yeah, we got most of that taken care of.
Were there any fatalities from yesterday?
No, there were 9 injuries. I think the worst I'm hearing is some broken bones. So it was, by all told, nothing short of a miracle that,
Yeah.
that no one was hurt worse. So all in all, while we don't want to see 100-car pileups, it was a success as far as how all that went. So, but yes, we're here to talk about the scheduling software. It was budgeted in last year's budget. We went through the RFP process with fiscal. This came in under budget. Ultimately, dealing with the type of scheduling that 24/7 operations has is a bit of a mess. And so this will allow us a little better ability to schedule, to fill in overtime shifts, vacation and time off bids, as well as integrating with our new payroll system. So that all that is together. So.
1-year contract.
No, it's a multi-year contract, I believe 4.
With these contracts, do you have the ability to get out if you need to?
I'd be, yeah, I haven't looked through all the details of that, but generally, if they're not coming up to what they said that they were able to do, then we have our ability to get out of those if they breach that contract. Yeah. Ultimately, if they do all the things they say they're going to be able to do, then we'll be fine. So.
Any other questions? Right. If not, we will call the roll.
Mr. Teeples?
Yes.
Mr. Georgezma?
Yes.
Mr. Barry?
Yes.
Mrs. Rohde?
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra?
Yes.
Mr. Kyers?
Yes.
Mr. Bonema?
Yes.
Motion
Thank you.
passes.
Thank you, Sheriff. Next up is the flooring replacement. The suggested motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners a contract with River City Flooring to replace the gym flooring in the Juvenile Detention and Juvenile Justice Institute for a total cost of $110,741.
So moved. Support.
Any conversation on this one?
Where's this located? Where, you guys?
On campus?
We're in the, right over there. It's right here?
Yeah, it's right here on site by the jail.
At the,
Across the street?
Juvenile detention facility just over here, and James Street B campus would be the Juvenile Justice Institute. Gym floor replacements.
is that on James Street? Where-
Yep.
This might be a silly question, but the only people who use that would be the kids who are in the juvenile justice facility, correct?
Correct.
Okay. How often does it get used? Is it daily?
Every day.
Weekly?
Every day.
Okay.
Is it gonna be a gym floor or is it more of a tartan turf type?
It is a Tarket product. It is a cushioned vinyl, removing the black rubber floor. That was not really for gyms, so this was a 2026 CIP project.
Yeah, I've never taken a tour of that facility, so that's a,
Happy to give you one.
yeah, I might do that. I've been to the jail, but yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. Any other questions on the flooring? If not, we'll go to Rachel.
Mr. Kyers?
Yes.
Mr. Barry?
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra?
Yes.
Mr. Teeples?
Yes.
Mrs. Rohde?
Yes.
Mr. Georgezma?
Yes.
Mr. Bonema?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. On to digital evidence management. The suggested motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the 5-year agreement with Aon Justice to allow the Public Defender's Office to purchase the use of the evidence.com software for the management of digital evidence at a cost of $270,031.20.
So moved.
Support. Do we have anybody addressing this one?
I can address it. Yeah.
So Sarah Matoisic at the prosecutor's office was having the same issue, right? With all the body cameras on sheriffs and all that kind of stuff, how do we integrate all the evidence, right? All
Right.
that stuff. Is there some type of correlation going on now with the public defenders that we can use the systems that?
Yep, all 3 systems will be the same system, the Axon system. So the public defender's office will receive digital evidence as part of a case. They need to store that, they need to review it, they need to be redacted. And this allows them to come in line with the same systems that both the sheriff and the prosecutor's office are using. And it's an incredible amount of data when you're talking body cams. So to store that in a secure environment is what this would effectively do.
Should we expect, I mean, this is 270,000 just to the public defender's office. Should we expect the same? Or are they already in place at the prosecutor and sheriff's office?
So clarification on that, I talked to fiscal services director. The action request says it's funded out of the general fund. It's actually MIDC that funds the public defender's office. So this contract would be entirely funded through the MIDC, which.
Oh,
Under the ballot.
Oh, okay. That makes it easy.
But to John's question, will we see requests for the sheriff's office?
They already have it.
I
Yeah,
thought they-
they're
yeah.
using it now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this brings public defender in line with the other two.
Is this evidence held into perpetuity? Is it?
Depends on the case, and that's getting outside of my pay grade, but I think it does, it's held as long as necessary, which can include perpetuity.
Any other discussion? All right, not seeing any. We'll go to Rachel.
Mr. Zylstra.
Yes.
Mr. Kyers.
Yes.
Mr. Barry.
Yes.
Mr. Georgezma.
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey.
Yes.
Mr. Teeples.
Yes.
Mr. Bonema.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, moving on to number 6, architecture and engineering services. The suggested motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the contract with Fishbeck for architecture and engineering services related to the employee relocation remodel at the Grand Haven Courthouse for a total cost of $222,500.
So moved.
Who supported it? George Smith supported it.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll kick it off too. This is really, the way I look at this is a continuation of the Family Justice Center project. This is the leftover of the result of relocating the family court over. The space that was vacated is being reallocated by other offices in the court. And so it was always part of the plan, but it wasn't included in the Family Justice Center budget. So we're dealing with this as a separate project that David's been managing.
Yeah, so this contract before you is the design of that remodel. We're going to be touching the ground floor, would be the front of the court self-help legal. The first floor would be district court and probation, flip-flopping those two departments right now. And then the second floor is moving the prosecuting attorney's office from the first floor to the second floor, which is currently vacant right now because of the Family Justice Center moves. So, any questions?
No, I've been up there and I think they're eager to get this done, so.
They're very eager.
Could be in the building 5 minutes and they'll tell you how excited they are to have some new space.
Yes.
So, very good. With that, if there's no questions from the commissioners, we will go to Rachel.
Mr. Zylstra.
Yes.
Mr. Georgezma.
Yes.
Mr. Kyers.
Yes.
Mr. Barry.
Yes.
Mr. Teeples.
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey.
Yes.
Mr. Bonema.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Super. All right. Number 7, the quarterly financial status report. The suggested motion is to receive for information the detailed financial statements for the general fund and mental health fund, as well as a higher level summary for the special revenue funds through the end of the 4th quarter of fiscal year 2025.
So moved.
All right, some discussion.
Karen is here to answer any questions on that if there are any related to it.
I want to understand the higher level. Good morning, Karen.
Good morning. I could just point out a few items. So this is the 4th quarter. So this is 9/30/2025. So these are unaudited. And we are working on closing the year. So the auditors, if you get anywhere close to my office, there will be in and out now for a little while. They audit the county, they audit all of the component units for the county. So they come to our office and then they leave and they come back for a little while. They will be doing the county audit in Usually they're here sometime in February, March. They finish things up and then they present the statements to the board in April. So the statements are actually due to the state March 31st. And so that's the deadline to get them to the state. And so then they present them here. So at that point, you'll see final statements. So at this point, it's just preliminary. So some of the information you're seeing here and some of the explanations, you'll see it's not final. So some of our notes isn't complete. The item that Andy spoke on, we experienced that across several departments. So there was a number of departments that received that same information about SAMHSA grants. So we thought, oh, we should add that. So we quick added it about the federal grants. Several departments received notes about the SAMHSA grants, and then we submitted the report to the board, and then a day later, we got the note that they reinstated that grant. And so it's like, well, so we added the note that, hey, they were reinstated. So it was very nice to be able to do that. That I think speaks to some of the reason we talked about earlier, why we don't immediately respond to, hey, let's go in, let's immediately make those come in the next day and make those knee-jerk reactions when we get that grant. Sometimes we just wait a minute because sometimes you got to give it a chance for voices to be heard. The other thing I wanted to speak to was in some of the, we're still working on the general fund revenues mostly. So we're still working through a lot of that. So I think expenses are more finished, if you will, than revenues. So we're still recording a lot of accruals. We're still balancing and doing a lot of that. So I think tax revenues, I think interest still has a accrual that needs to be recorded. So, but expenses are probably closer to complete. So if you're looking just at the numbers, I think the revenues are more complete than the expenses, or the expenses are more complete than the revenues. So then drawing to the expenses, if you looked at the general fund, the expenses, we finished the year in a much better position even than we would normally finish. And I'm saying more complete. I'm not saying completely final. I wouldn't say that we might not find another couple entries. I'm just saying they're probably more complete. But you may recall when we passed the budget with planning on using reserves because departments generally underspend their budget. So we plan on that when we adopt the budget. So the departments, if you looked at the general fund, and I'm kind of looking at the one with all of the numbers now, not the graph, but there it shows total general and fund expenditures, and it looks like we're under budget by about $6.5 million, and that's a fairly large underspend. If you recall, a few months ago, I came before you and we talked about closing a fund, compensated absences fund. That represents, we sent that money back to the fund that what it originated with. You may not recall, but that represents about 3 million of that 6.5 million. So that's not necessarily department underspend, that's closing that fund. So that is the explanation for why. So it's not necessarily all department underspend. So I just wanted to point that out.
Those were salaries for positions that were unfilled.
The 3 million was, we closed a fund, an internal service fund, and then those dollars reverted back to and a significant portion of that would have reverted back to the general fund. So 3 million of that 6.5 million isn't a reoccurring, isn't the result of departments underspending. So that is kind of this unique, driven by changes in accounting principles. And it's a unique kind of one-time thing that won't occur all the time. And it's not driven necessarily from anything that the departments did or any vacancies or anything like that.
But the other 3.5 million was from department underspend?
It would be from departments or entries that we still have to make, or, it could still change, but that's a more normal, in the range of, it's a more normal amount. And then the other fund that we really go into more detail about is community mental health. And I think you've heard Dr. Bashir's and others talk about, we're still projecting that about a $4 million in Medicaid, capitated Medicaid, and about $1 million deficit in CCBHC. So approximately $5 million projection overall. But but they're still finalizing numbers there too. The FSR for CMH is due February 28th. So that's one of the, actually the later items that really kind of push our timeline, if you will, for the audit. So that's one of the kind of late items that really drive the audit timeline.
Is that a revenue issue? Is that one of the reasons why the revenues are lagging expenses here? Is that an example? That there's,
So that's the, where their expenses are coming in. So they're spending, I mean, that's where they're really needing those resources from the LRE in that risk corridor. So the LRE is having to use money from their internal service fund to reimburse us beyond the money they're originally allocated through what I would say from their actuary, from the original estimates that we were provided.
so are you saying that we expect to get some, hear from LRE by February? Is that what you're saying?
No, we file, so when you're, it's final reports. So the way that it works is we bill and we accept invoices from providers later than normal. So the county, I mean, we really close and accept invoices through October, maybe early November. They're accepting invoices longer because it's medical billing and they're just, law requires it's later. And so the state, their final grant report is due February 28th. So it's a longer period of time. So it's a timeline, whereas most other grant reports are usually due November 30th or December 15th. But the CMH reports, it's February 28th.
Yeah, please.
So I'm wondering, besides interest that's accrued, that you're going to report on revenues that you don't have yet, what other things prevent you from having an analysis of revenue as compared to the expenses? I'm just curious about how that works.
What other things?
You said, yeah, you understand my question?
Right.
Okay.
So, what other things? So, like, while all of the grant reports have to be filed, so we start with all the expense reports are submitted, and then all the accruals are done. The treasurer at the same time is balancing bank statements and making sure that everything's been recorded. All the local units are submitting, so we record. I know this sounds odd, but under accounting rules, we record tax revenue through November 30th back to September. So anything that comes in through November, we record back to September. So that means the treasurer has to get all the way through November's reconciliation and make sure that everything's reconciled and in the right period and record it back so that they reconcile and they're done. And then we finish up what we have to do to make sure, because they really record kind of on a cash basis, and then we make sure that it's in the right period. So it's just
Okay, yeah, I can see the delay.
yeah. So they're, so if they're finishing by the end of December, we would, they're reconciling their stuff and making sure, they're done and everything's recorded and in the right, in the bank's done, then we'll come along and make sure everything's in the right period.
Got it. Thanks. Jacob?
Yeah, Commissioner Barry.
With regards to CMH, we've heard that the state legislatures allocated funds for CMH, but the state hasn't released them yet. Are you expecting anything more to come in from the state for CMH for last fiscal year?
I wouldn't, I don't know if that will happen or not. I mean, I haven't heard anything.
Okay.
If it is going to happen. I know we talked to, much earlier in the year, we talked to Senator Huizenga, but I haven't heard about anything, if that would happen or not.
Okay, thank you.
Well, looking up, looking down, I don't see any other comments. So we are on number 7 to receive for information the detailed financial statements for the general fund and mental health fund, as well as a higher level summary for the special revenue funds through the end of the fourth quarter of fiscal year 2025.
So, sorry, can I just add one thing?
Yeah.
So Karen, I know that you stated, that grant had been, reversed. And I might just be missing it, but I don't see in the report that it specifically notes that in writing. So I guess I just want to point that out, unless it's just in there somewhere. I don't see, just that detail's missing. So the first page it outlines the grants we lost. But I just think it's important to note again that those did come back.
Yeah, that,
Red.
it was the red, right under the watch list.
Okay.
It says, as of the report date, the federal government has restored the previously affected federal grants.
My printer doesn't print red very good. That's what the problem is. Okay, thank you.
All right. I think we're ready to vote. Thank you, Rachel.
Mr. Georgezma,
Yes.
Mr. Barry,
Yes.
Mrs. Rohde,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Teeples,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema.
Yes.
Motion passes.
On to number 8, the suggested motion is to approve the general claims in the amount of $15,710,608.45 as presented by the summary report for December 1, 2025 through December 31, 2025.
So moved.
Support.
Any questions on that one? Not seeing any. We'll go back to Rachel.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mrs. Rohde,
Yes.
Mr. Georgezma,
Yes.
Mr. Teeples.
Yes.
Mr. Barry,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema.
Yes.
Motion passes.
And finally, number 9, the suggested motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the FY 2026 budget adjustments per the attached schedule.
So moved.
Support.
Any questions on that one? It's smooth sailing. Rachel, back to you.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Barry,
Yes.
Mr. Teeples,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Georgezma,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Wonderful. And that brings us to our discussion items, and we have our treasurer here this morning. Ms. Clark, welcome. It looks like you have conquered the cold,
I have. Yes, the flu, actually.
the flu.
Yeah,
Oh, you look healthy. Welcome.
thank you. So Regina is passing out my, my treasurer's report.
I do have a question on on your reports.
Yes,
Are these ever put online for the public to see?
yes, they are. Yep.
Are they just under your department or?
They're under the treasurer's office, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
I think it was a little bit delayed this time just
It was.
because you're under the weather.
Yeah.
But,
I actually just emailed WebTex and asked them to submit this report online, so I'm waiting for them to do that. So you can see in my report that we met the investment portfolio requirements, that we're doing well in our interest according to benchmark. And our par value in investments is right around where we were last year with 137, 398, 983. The OPEB, our target is 50% in fixed income, 49.5% in equity funds, and 50.5% in sweep account cash. We are right around there, a little high in the equity funds, a little low in fixed income. One thing I did include this time that I haven't included before is the Federal Reserve District's beige book report. So it's the last part of my report there, and we are in the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago district. Gave you a little information about what the beige book is and how it's used by those of us who do investing, just to kind of give us an idea of how things are looking economically and labor markets, prices, all of that stuff. So I just wanted to point that out, that this is something new that I might start including in your reports monthly, just to give you an idea of what the Federal Reserve is saying. Any questions on my report?
Does the Federal Reserve report you have only deal with our region or is it national?
They do a national. I can also include the national one if you would like. They start off with the national and then they break it down by district.
I just want to make sure that what I'm looking at is,
What you're looking at is our district,
and what would that district be? Is
Chicago.
just Chicago? Well, yeah, but how far? I mean, what states? Are we talking?
Oh, if you look at, did I include the map?
Yeah. I think on the
Map there?
Yeah.
Yeah, so on the very front page, of the beige book,
Oh, yeah. That's what it deals with. Okay.
sorry, it's not in color. Next time I'll put it in color, but we are Michigan.
Okay. No, that's good.
Yeah.
See it. Okay. I like this information. So I
Okay.
keep adding it.
Yeah, I can do that. Okay.
If I'm looking at the shades of gray.
Yeah.
Correct, does it reach all the way out to Montana? Is that all?
No, so we are only, if I remember correctly, we're only the four. I can circle.
Looks like it's Michigan, Iowa, half of Wisconsin, half of Illinois, and half of Indiana.
Can you tell that?
There's the line. This thicker white line. Do you see
Yeah.
that border? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that helps.
Yeah. Okay.
Wraps around Iowa.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the UP is not part of our district. I can't.
Yeah.
It looks like it.
Hard to say.
Looks like it cuts.
It is.
Is it?
I don't know.
Okay.
It looks like it might not.
Looks like it cuts out the UP. Sorry, Upers.
We don't have Ohio.
Yeah. Cut out Ohio. That's right.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Cheryl this morning? All right, thank you for your report. Well,
We also have, you wanted to talk about the Pung versus Isabella County.
Yeah.
This is related to tax foreclosure. And we have our attorney, Ted Seitz, joining us to talk about that. Because we are coming before you to ask for an $8,000 contribution to Isabella County to help them fight this tax foreclosure. It's in front of the Supreme Court right now. And I also forwarded you an email, or I sent you an email with the information that Ted had provided as far as this case.
how is the $8,000 derived? Is that something that all counties are sharing it?
No, it was something that the larger counties, like Ottawa is one of the larger counties, are donating more or giving more, 8,000. Some of the counties that are larger than Ottawa gave 10,000. I came up with 8,000 that I thought we could do.
Cheryl, correct me if I'm wrong, is the insurance authority paying that 8,000?
Was the insurance authority going to pay that, or was that? Yes, the insurance authority is paying that, sorry.
All right, looks like we have them on the screen, so we'll turn it over to our attorney here. Morning.
Morning. Thanks, commissioners, for having me and talk about this important case that's pending in front of the United States Supreme Court, where really Michigan's property tax system and multiple states' property tax systems are in front of the Supreme Court. Kind of take you back to government or the Constitution, the two issues that the court took the case, and it's very rare for the Supreme Court to take any case. I mean, they really only decide about 30 cases a year after thousands of cert petitions come in asking for them to look at something. But the two issues are the Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, specifically takings without just compensation. And the other item is the Eighth Amendment excessive fines clause. And to put it in more specific terms, what is at issue is whether when a property is tax foreclosed and it's sold at auction, is all that someone's entitled to, an interest holder of the property, is the surplus proceeds, if any. And that's the way our law is currently written in Michigan and most states. Or are interest holders, or we'll call the owner, entitled to the fair market value of the property. So that would mean for a state like Michigan now, which allows surplus proceeds and there's claims for it, it wouldn't matter, because once the treasurer forecloses on property, there would be some sort of appraisal process, and the treasurer and really the county would have to pay the fair market value for that property, which would be well in excess most of the time, probably 99% of the time, of any type of surplus proceeds or any type of taxes owed. So it would be a net loss constantly to foreclose. And I think the waterfall would be that treasurers and counties would not want to foreclose anymore, because basically you lose money, tax dollars, by foreclosing. And then once the counties and the treasurer don't foreclose anymore, people just probably will stop paying their property taxes because there'll be no recourse for that at all. And of course, that would be a giant parade of horribles that would run all the way down to our townships, municipalities that use property taxes to fund public safety, basically everything as far as the local services. And again, we're not alone. I mean, I think most states, the locals do property taxes to, fund those items. There may be a few states that use some sort of sales tax or income tax, but that's very few and far between. And as far as the Eighth Amendment excessive fines clause, that's really taking kind of a criminal, what's been used as a criminal piece, and basically saying anytime you foreclose, it's an excessive fine tied in, including the fees. So you're going to have to compensate people for that too. where this case sits is the court has set oral argument for February 25th at 10 a.m., obviously in the Supreme Court in Washington, D.C. There have been a multitude of amicus briefs filed. And I think the amicus briefs supporting Isabella County are due today to the court. One of the key pieces of amicus has been the United States has filed an amicus brief in the case. They are, neutral as they're supposed to be, and that would be the Solicitor General's Office of the United States. However, when you read their amicus, they are clearly against a fair market value kind of takings piece or the use of the excessive fines. Instead, they've asked that the Supreme Court remand back to the Sixth Circuit and then likely to the Federal District Court to look at the auction and whether it's done fairly. In other words, I think they're telling the court you shouldn't have taken this case. They will be arguing at the court as well, which is a positive development for Isabella County and the rest of us. Because obviously the Supreme Court puts a lot of credence in what the United States and the Solicitor General's office says about an issue. As far as amicus, I think the treasurer forwarded you a copy of an amicus that was filed last week on behalf of the Michigan Association of Counties, the Michigan Municipal League, the Michigan Township Association, and the Michigan Association of County Treasurers. So that's out there. I believe that as of today, there will be amicus filed by the Michigan Attorney General, which will be joined by, many states' attorney generals. There will be a brief filed by New York, including their Association of Counties and Locals. There will be one filed by Wisconsin Association of Counties. I believe there's going to be one filed by Hennepin County, which is Minneapolis, and had a case in front of the Supreme Court a few years ago called Tyler versus Hennepin County, dealing with similar issues. And I think there's probably going to be an amicus, in fact, I know there is, filed by the National County Association. Beyond that, we'll see what the day kind of plays out as far as amicus coming in. Obviously, this case of tremendous importance because, once the Supreme Court of the United States rules on something, the issue's over. There's no further appeal. And they will be issuing some sort of decision by the end of June. That's when the Supreme Court has to issue all of its decisions for this term.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, is how quickly do you see them responding? So they'll probably drag their feet until June. They won't likely rule before then.
It depends. I mean, they usually leave, not that this isn't a really important issue to Michigan, but they usually leave the most controversial decisions or cases in front of them to the very last few days. So I will know more at oral argument on the 25th. The justices will ask their questions. Over the past few years, there's no time limit on the arguments. I would expect this one probably lasts a couple hours, and every justice will ask questions. We'll have a decent sense from their questions what they're thinking. It's not always the case, but we'll have an idea. And it may be that they issue an opinion, in May or April or something like that. And if they were to follow the United States Solicitor General's office, they may issue opinion that says, what they call cert was improvidently granted. So what it really means is, oops, sorry, we didn't know when we took this case that maybe there wasn't enough meat on the bones, or we didn't really see the full extent of the issues that the parties have told us. And the United States has told us. So we shouldn't have taken this one. So this is going to go back and remanded to the Federal Court of Appeals. That would be the Sixth Circuit, which is based down in Cincinnati, Ohio. So long-winded way of answering your question. You don't know. I would think this one probably is not a last day opinion that comes out. I would think it probably is sometime around Memorial Day, or the week after, probably in that wave when they start just issuing opinions, really throughout May and in the month of June until you get to like the last 2 or 3 really big ones.
All right, I'm gonna go to Commissioner Teeples for a question.
So obviously, this is a huge case for all of us. And you said it originated out of the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals?
Yeah, well, it first came out of the Western District of Michigan Federal District Court. And then actually it got transferred to the Eastern District of Michigan because they realized that Isabella County is not in the Western District of Michigan, it's actually in the Eastern District of Michigan. So, I don't know why it took them so long to figure that out. And then from there, it went up to the United States Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. They issued an opinion. And then there was what's called a cert petition, which is really asking the court to take the case filed by the plaintiff. So the plaintiff, I would say, lost basically in the Sixth Circuit. So they said, Supreme Court, take a look at this. And they're backed by a bunch of, kind of public organizations, public interest organizations. And then from there, the Supreme Court granted cert on October 3rd of last year. So that's the flow of it.
Okay, so I think I heard you correctly. So the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that against the plaintiff, right?
Yeah.
Against the homeowner, in essence. Did the federal court of the Eastern District as well, or the Western District, however it ended up making that decision? They
Yes.
also ruled against? Okay.
Yes. Primarily, I think there's some other issues and some parties have dropped out. For a while, the state was in here. The tax tribunal commissioner was sued. And those parties kind of dropped out over time. But yes, I mean, that's kind of the flow of things.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yep. And it's a little bit messy, the case too, because there's some PRE issues that are kind of baked in here, and a lot of those have kind of filtered their way out, but they still, kind of appear in some of the briefings. So, it's a messy case, maybe messier than usually is in front of the United States Supreme Court, kind of factually.
All right, Ted, we're gonna go to Commissioner Rhodey for the next question.
Okay.
Hi, I have a question kind of more along the lines of what are the ramifications if it doesn't go the way that we're looking for it to go?
Yeah.
So, if ultimately there's not enforcement where people don't feel that they need to pay their property taxes, does that mean that Michigan will need to be looking at going to more of a sales tax model or looking at doing something different?
Yes.
Okay.
And sorry to interrupt you, but yeah.
No, that's
yeah,
good.
that's the bottom line. Yeah, and that's the danger, right? I mean, that's really the ultimate bad scenario. And we wouldn't be the only state doing that. I mean, I would think that many states and locals would deal with that. But yes, that decision would come down in June. And I would think that the legislature and the governor need to think quick about, how can we reform our system?
Okay. So what other states are currently operating that way?
Just offhand, Wisconsin. Illinois has a slightly different system, but still would be in the crosshairs on this. They have what's called a tax lien system, but still kind of the same. Minnesota still does. Ohio would be another state. New York, Massachusetts, New Jersey. I would think in Florida is another one they would impact. Texas would be impacted locally. California, Arizona, Washington, and probably many more. I would think there's more states impacted than less, right? And those states that have no income tax may be impacted more. So, Florida, no income tax. Texas, no income tax. So property taxes are a big part of what they do.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Commissioner Jortsma is up next.
Yeah, less of a question and more of a, I guess, encouragement that we really need to win this.
Yes.
It seems
Yeah.
like, I guess the fear for me is not, that we wholesale change to a sales tax model. I think, there's philosophical merits to an argument like that. But if this were to happen, it would obligate Ottawa County to buy essentially every house that someone just decides to stop paying taxes on.
Mhm.
So if, I'm ready to sell my house, I know I can guaranteed get my assessed value for it. By the way, some of our assessed values from our assessors are higher maybe than an actual fair market value is worth. So I know I'm going to get this amount of money. I'm just going to stop paying my taxes. Boom, the county has to buy it. I think it would bankrupt Ottawa County if
Mhm.
this happened.
Yeah, we would have to flip to something really quick.
Oh,
Yes.
I just don't even know how you do that and implement it. So
In Ottawa County, we don't foreclose on many homes. We try very, very hard not to do that. But there have been some homes in the past where we have foreclosed on them. And if we have to pay for fair market value for those homes, then I would be taking it out of the delinquent tax revolving fund, which I don't know if I have enough money in there to do that.
make the land bank authority more fun, probably.
Yes, yeah.
But no, I encourage you to keep, doing what you're doing. We got to win. So to me, what the discussion at hand, are we deciding on $8,000?
Just a discussion.
No, we just wanted to make you all aware of this case and how important it is to Ottawa County and other counties in the state of Michigan.
Yeah.
And I would encourage you all to listen to the argument too on February 25th. I mean, it used to be the Supreme Court, it didn't live stream things, but now they typically do. And you can access that from the Supreme Court website. It would be interesting, I think, for everybody to kind of see what the justice questions are and get a sense of maybe what some of them, all of them are thinking.
I really appreciate you bringing it to our attention so that we can listen, because I think that will be really helpful to better understand it.
Yeah, this one hits home, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
It's scary.
All right. Well, I don't see any other questions this morning. Thank you for attending and answering our questions, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll let you be on your day.
Thank you,
Take
Ted.
care. Thank
Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you.
All right. Next up for discussion with the board is the eviction prevention program update with Ms. Campice. Welcome. Welcome back.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm Erin Campice. I'm the Executive Director at Good Samaritan. I'm excited to be back here and continue this discussion about the program. I'm going to briefly walk you through the slides that I submitted, and then I have Judge Knoll here, who is also going to share some Ottawa County knowledge with you. So to start, I'd like to give you just an overview picture of what the housing ecosystem looks like in Ottawa County.
I have some questions along the way. Is it okay if I ask as you go through, or do you want me to wait till the end?
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Stop me whenever.
Okay.
All right. Down. There we go. All right. So this graphic shows a nice picture of sort of how we address housing issues in Ottawa County, right? We go from unsheltered, trying to move people along into long-term recovery at that market rate housing. And so Good Samaritan is the housing assessment and resource agency. So we work in the continuum of care, and we do assessments and screenings and refer people to the right programs. And so that's where we come into play in this, and where we see eviction prevention fitting in the continuum is as early intervention to help people maintain housing before they need those real crisis supports. The annual point in time count counts the number of individuals who are experiencing homeless. We do that every January under the Lakeshore Housing Alliance. So you can see from the past few years, there's been a steady increase. And what we're seeing is there's a number of contributing factors to homelessness. And so some of those on this list you'll see require pretty severe or a large amount of support. And so really what eviction prevention is trying to do is to address some of those factors that don't need deep intervention.
So a question that I had on that piece was, do you have data on, because you're right, some of these do require quite a substantial amount of intervention. So do you have data on these cases that you are working with? How many of them are, are working with these particular factors?
I mean, there is system-wide data. I didn't bring it today to talk about this program, but yeah, would love to get you some more information, or Lakeshore Housing Alliance, Christina Fort. She's a great resource for that too.
Okay, so just to follow up on that, would you say that you are working with the lighter end of those issues, or
Absolutely.
okay.
So things like lost jobs and unemployment on there, right? We're doing what we can to help people stay in an affordable unit, and it's really a light touch.
Okay.
What is the deinstitutionalization referring to? Could you give me an example of that one?
Coming out of jail,
That would be it. Thank you.
Is it? Okay.
I would assume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Recidivism is a real thing. So yeah,
Yep.
we want to keep them out of jail.
Yep.
All right.
All right.
Sorry, one more thing.
No.
So on the heavier part of that list, the things that require more assistance, are those more seen in deep homelessness?
Absolutely. So that's when we're talking about emergency shelters or unhoused individuals. Some of that real crisis work on that continuum
Okay.
tends to deal with some of those tougher issues.
Okay, thank you.
So a snapshot of what eviction looks like in Ottawa County. The blue bars on this graph are showing you the number of renter households in Ottawa County. So you can see over the past few years, it's starting to decline. The orange line is showing you the percentage of those renter households that are facing an eviction in a year. And as you can see, since 2020, that's been on a sharp incline. So what we're seeing is almost 3,000 households are facing an eviction filing every year in Ottawa County. All right, so we touched on some of this last time, but who did we assist in this eviction prevention program? And you can see these numbers: 1,664 residents of Ottawa County. We served the 588 households, $2.2 million in expense. So we're finding the average cost of that service is far cheaper than other programs that come along. So if we're talking about emergency shelter, the cost annually for one person is $38,000. The cost for us to rehouse someone under a Good Samaritan program after they've been homeless, it will cost us 5 times what it does to prevent an eviction in the first place.
Can you repeat that whole idea again?
Sure.
Cost of sheltering versus what you do. Can you kind of go
Sure.
back through that again?
So eviction prevention costs us, on average, per individual, $1,371. To house one person in emergency shelter for a year costs $38,000. If we were to house someone after homelessness through our rapid rehousing program at Good Samaritan, it will cost us 5 times what it costs us to prevent. So it is a much cheaper option.
Is that sometimes too because the issues involved in homelessness are going to be greater?
Absolutely. It requires more case management. It's a deeper program that lasts a little bit longer, so it does cost more to rehouse someone.
Are you able to do a correlation between those that are evicted and those that end up in homelessness, rather than going to another rental unit? Do you have that analysis?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't. That's not a number I know.
Okay.
So we believe a stable housing ecosystem requires targeted short-term support to prevent people from needing more expensive solutions later. And that leaves those deep programs with funding and availability to serve people who do need more intensive care. Oh, I almost skipped the good part. On this slide, we went back and you had asked me sort of, why are people coming to you for assistance? And so we went through all of our intake records, and I can tell you that 30% of clients came to us because they were in need of medical, or they had a medical bill that then set them back on their rent. Another 48% were due to job loss or reduced hours or something that was out of their control, but their income suddenly went down and they didn't have enough to cover their rent.
So I really appreciate you putting this together, because this, I think, shows a really important picture. To me, almost all of these things that are on here are temporary. And with the exception of rent increase, childcare, and low wages, every single one of these can be addressed, economically, and typically are addressed in, arguably maybe not medical, but a lot of times you get one big medical bill. But eventually, if you're able to pay that off, it's not like you've lost your job. It's not like your rent is going to be consistently so much higher. I think the fact that rent increase only accounts for 1% of this actually shows that maybe what's needed is it's a very temporary stopgap. And then I think the question is, what's the best method to get them that temporary stopgap? I don't see this as being, a huge ongoing systemic problem that these people are facing. Car repair, you pay for the car repair and your car works again in most cases. So I do appreciate you putting that together. I think this really adds context.
All right, moving
Please
on.
continue.
Okay, family stability. So you also asked me what's the household makeup of the people you're serving. And so I can tell you that 48% of those 1,600 individuals we served were under the age of 18. And 60% of the households we served had children in them. So we know that children bear the deepest and most long-lasting impact of housing insecurity. I hope you had a chance to read the letter from the OAISD. It talked a lot about the impact that homelessness has on children, and even just an eviction and having to move homes, right? It can set them back in learning. They'll experience social challenges, graduations drop, right? These are real things that happen to children. And I hope you had a moment to read the letter from Quincy Bird that talks about his real life experience of being a parent with children and then having Good Samaritan step in and doing a one-time assistance that helped him carry on. And he's been able to serve on city council. He's an engineer, right? All of these things that would not have happened if Good Samaritan wouldn't have stepped in. So here's how the program works. I think we talked last time about sort of our criteria, but the process starts with an eviction notice and a referral from the court, which is why Judge Knoll is here today. We have a strict screening criteria to ensure that households will be successful after we serve them. There are income limits that I've put on here so that you get a grasp of what household income looks like for the families we're serving. A lot of them report working in retail or manufacturing positions. And we're partnering with other nonprofits and anyone we can to negotiate discounts whenever possible to maximize the funding that we have for this program. So what we achieved, so after our discussion, we talked a lot about long-term solutions. We went through every household and checked to see if they showed up in the homeless database system. And we found that only 8 households did out of the 588 that we served. That means 98% did not need additional support to continue being stably housed.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yeah.
In your graph, can you explain why it says residents remaining stably housed at program exit? Oh, never mind. Okay, I see your target was 80 and you hit 98. I
Correct.
was interpreting that different. So, okay, I'm good.
Yeah, I think this kind of reaffirms what Commissioner Georgema was saying, is that most of these issues are not multi-year. They
Right.
are, solved in the case of 12 months or less.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we did test the repayment model in this pilot program, but we found that it didn't increase housing stability. In fact, often it could discourage housing stability by forcing families who are living paycheck to paycheck to suddenly repay a bill over time. So it's not something that we would continue in the next model, but we would continue to encourage people to pay it forward as they're able to.
It's consistent with your data too, as to, why they came to you in the first place, that it was primarily financial reasons.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're asking for follow-on funding In the first round, year 1 through 3, you provided 2 million, which was 82% of our program costs. Now we're asking for a partnership of 300,000, which is only 30% of our program costs. So it's a step down approach to your partnership. And it's actually, we're asking for ARPA funds, but if you were comparing this to taxpayer dollars, that'd be 30 cents per taxpayer per year that would fund this work. So we feel like without your support, we would have to serve less households. And we know that that means they're going to show up. They're going to show up at court cases. They're going to show up at CMH. They're going to show up for other services. And so what we're really trying to do is prevent that from happening in the first place.
Let me make sure I understand this. So when it was initially funded, was it funded at the rate of $2 million?
For 3 years.
Okay. And now at this stage, the request is 300,000. And how have you made up the difference? I'm assuming you still have the need, original need.
Yeah.
But who makes up the difference? I heard Miller Knoll today. I heard Grand Haven Public Schools.
Yeah.
I heard the Lakeshore Alliance. Is that where how are you making up the difference?
Private donors are making up the difference. Yeah. So we're bringing
We're
in.
only accounting for 750,000, so
They are. So we're reducing the size of the program as well.
by half.
We're seeing we will go down by half. So we were serving about 500 people a year. We'll go down to 250 at this rate. We're seeing now that we're beyond COVID. While evictions are on the rise, there is less need for this form of funding.
So it was originally given during the heat of COVID when you have multiple households having problems.
Yes. So we believe your commitment would demonstrate your support of the housing ecosystem in Ottawa County, especially for those who are living in low-income households. My last slide here talks a little bit about the people who wrote letters of support. Hopefully you had a chance to look at them. We have landlords who care deeply about their tenants, but also need to bring in enough revenue to maintain their housing. We have nonprofit partners who are walking alongside us in that continuum to serve people. We have private donors, business leaders who care about this work and they want to see the county join in and throw their support behind this. And we have some county government departments. So Community Mental Health wrote a letter, OAISD, and I'm going to throw it over to Judge Canal for an update from him.
Before you step away, can I just ask, so you have $300,000 and $750,000. Can you tell us where you're at on raising the additional $750,000?
I have to do some quick mental math, and some of it is contingent on the county. So you'll see in the packet that I have a letter that says they'll give as soon as the county comes in. Yep. If you let me do some math, I can answer that question after Judge Canal. Sure.
Welcome, Judge.
My wife often says that I will speak whether invited or not invited. So I'm glad to be invited to speak for the committee. And I just wanted to give you a brief historical background here. At the end of the COVID era, I was asked to prepare a report to the commission, to the Housing Commission, I think it was, explaining what had happened over the period of time where we were subject to the COVID limitations on evictions and the implementation of federal assistance programs and the implementation of state assistance programs. And the paper came about by reason of the fact that there would no longer be any federal or state assistance in any significant amount. We still have Michigan Department of Health and Human Services providing state emergency relief, but it's a small drop in the bucket, and the requirements are difficult for a typical tenant to reach. And my experience on the bench in dealing with landlord-tenant cases, we're not dealing with the lowest low on the socioeconomic ladder. We're dealing, it's basically one notch ahead of that. We're dealing with people, frequently one income earner households, who are living from paycheck to paycheck. You know, a family emergency is defined as needing new tires because you either buy the new tires and don't pay the rent, or you pay the rent and don't buy the new tires. And I think we were unrealistic when we first implemented the prevention program, thinking that the tenants would be in a position to pay back the money, because once they get the assistance to get them over the hump as far as needing assistance because of some family emergency is broadly defined, they're back to living life paycheck to paycheck. So it would be unrealistic to assume that people who are going to receive the assistance would be in a position to pay that back. So we have to look for other funding sources. There's probably a half dozen courts in the state of Michigan. I think they all have different funding models, and I don't know exactly what they are. I know Kalamazoo is largely funded through their generous corporate programs through Upjohn and other organizations. And there have been many discussions between myself and the good people at Good Sam how we might attract other income or other resources to assist with this project. We've got our fair share of billionaires in this county, but none of them are particularly interested, at least have not expressed any particular interest in helping to fund that situation. Hopefully that can change, but we go along. It's a heartbreaking routine that we go through on a weekly basis. Last week I issued, I think, a half dozen eviction orders, and on a day like today, I'm wondering to myself, what happened to these people? Where are they? Where did they go? You know, hopefully they're in a family situation, but the housing crisis breeds other crises. My mantra in the recovery courts that I operate for mental health or substance abuse is it all starts with a roof, because projects or attempts at recovery depend really on a stable housing situation. And what the Ottawa County Eviction Prevention Program has been able to do is to keep the housing situation stable. And it's gratifying to see it happen. And there are some people that they just won't be able to help because it's gone, they've incurred too great a debt. But for the average person struggling and making the rental payments, that is, by my definition, one or two payments behind. This is the perfect program to deal with those people, not people who ignore their obligation, but people who, for one reason or another, can't meet that obligation this month or maybe last month, but can meet the obligation going forward. A lot of it's split up of family situations where you move into a rental unit with two income earners and suddenly one income earner leaves. And you've got mom and the kids and little income, and that gets to be a pretty desperate situation. That's where hopefully the Ottawa County Eviction Prevention Program can step in and assist those people. I wish I could give you precise numbers and that sort of thing, but my experience is more just empirically dealing with these people. They're not people who generally ignore their obligations. They're people who feel guilty about the fact that they've been unable to pay. They feel guilty because the landlord's cut them a break in the past or is cutting them a break now. And they feel ashamed that they're not able to do it. But circumstances being what they are, they can. I don't need to tell you that rental housing in Ottawa County is expensive. And even less than adequate rental housing can often be a budget buster for many of these people. And whatever the county can do, it's it's wonderful. It's a humanitarian thing, and I'm not trying to, denigrate the other necessary expenditures that local government must make. I'm 73 years old and I've never needed a fire truck, but I know we got to buy them. But this is something significant that the leadership of the county can do. And I hope that we'll see the continuation of the program in some form, because it's made us stand out. Ottawa County stands out in so many ways. We're the envy of most of the jurisdictions in the state. And one of the reasons is the way we treat our people. I guess that's what Al Vandenberg would always call the Ottawa County way, and that we still call it the Ottawa County way. So thank you for hearing me. I'd be happy to take any questions that you have.
Thank you.
I don't really have a question, but I do just want to say I really appreciate the clarity that you have brought and that you've brought as well on what is involved here, because I think the more data and information that we have, it's very helpful. Because even, as you talk about donors not wanting to give to something like this, I think sometimes it's because they don't understand really what's going on within that program, because I would personally be less ready to give money if I think it's going to a situation where we often think of homelessness with drug abuse and stuff like that, where if I give this money, is it just going to get wasted? Because it's such a deep problem and there's more help that's needed than just, money for a room in that situation. But I feel like with this program, we're talking about something different. And so I think even in going and looking for additional, partners, I think it's helpful to clarify exactly what's going on. So I appreciate you guys going back and bringing more information.
Thank you for those comments.
There you go. Commissioner Georgezma.
Yeah, I appreciate your comments too. I agree with Commissioner Rhodey. This is different than what many people think of when they think of a traditional welfare program or something like that. And I think the stats that I really like in here, obviously 98% staying stably housed, that's amazing. But also the impact on kids. And we can have our discussions about whether a program like this should be implemented, but the effect that it's having on kids and schools and their ability to perform in schools, I mean, it's incredible. So I do have some questions, and I think maybe a deeper discussion about the validity of some sort of repayment program should be warranted, because I do think, some form of repayment just makes you able to help out more houses. And I get the pay it forward model, is maybe a bit idealistic to expect that these people will be able to repay. But sustainable programs like this, to me, are the best kind, because they can pay for themselves and there's community benefit, community buy-in. I don't know that it has to be a 100% repayment, but those are the kinds of the questions. So I don't disagree on the what being important, but maybe the how we can implement it best. And it's been, an experiment. It's a work in progress. Obviously, it's a fairly new program. So I think we can have some discussions about that. But yeah, I like the concept.
Thank you.
Commissioner Teeples.
So Aaron, first of all, excellent work. We hit you with a lot of stuff the last time you came, and you've come back with great data, and it couldn't have been easy to gather this stuff given what it sounded like you had to do to get there. So it was very helpful. As I'm looking at this, to me, when ARPA funds became available, they were one-time grants, right? My mind is grants should be used as seeds, right, to make something, and then the recipient of those grants do something and make it sustainable, as we just heard as a goal, right? What I'm hearing here is that you've done that. You're willing to reduce your program in half, right? you've got the private sector involved, you've got municipal, you've got public sector involved. Yeah, you can do a lot more. So you, from a sustainability standpoint, it's pretty clear that you know what you need to do if this is going to be sustainable long-term, which is the ultimate goal, right? And then the judge has acknowledged it as well, right? There's multiple stakeholders and then you have the success rate that you have, long-term success rate. I mean, I know clearly the importance of helping someone fix a car. Otherwise, they're not getting to work for 2 months. And then what happens to the rent? And sometimes, yeah, they can pay it back, but a lot of times they can't, right? They're just moving on to the next and hoping they're going to make it, especially with all the increases of the rents and everything else. So I think this is a success, whereas before I wasn't even sure, right? And so I appreciate you coming in, and yeah, I would look forward to taking this to the board.
Thank you.
One question I had is you can obviously see the progression where you are lowering the county's involvement in the second 3 years. How about the third 3 years? Is that because now you have more of a story to tell? Do you feel like you can go to the private sector even more and say, look, this is working? And where do you see us from years 6 through 9, 7 through 10?
Yeah, that would absolutely be my goal, that we can start bringing others on board, that we can start creating a word and a buzz, right? But if the county pulls out now, it feels like the county is saying, this didn't work, it wasn't a success, we're not behind this program. Where what I'm asking you to do is just reduce down, stay with us for another 3 years, help us get really solid on where we are and see where that can take us. So to answer your question, I've already secured 210,000. So this is 250 a year is what we need to secure in private donations. I've already secured 210 for this first year. And then I have 140,000 already secured for the next 2 years. So I do already have funding that would match everything that the county can put in.
Good job.
Thank you.
Commissioner Rhodey,
I have a number of thoughts I'd just like to put on the table, if that's all right.
go ahead.
Okay. So, if you can just bear with me for a minute. In 2025, the American people discovered massive unaccountable government funding of nonprofits, which led to a magnitude of fraud and abuse. American families worked hard and paid their taxes, only to have their earnings irresponsibly spent by NGOs without their best interests at heart. So in general, we're in a new era of transparency and accountability. Americans are a generous people with a heart for each other, but their generosity should be chosen and not forced through taxation. So when we choose to use taxes to support nonprofits, it has to be done with really great care. I really believe we're in a different time period in relation to that due to what everybody has seen in the last year. So one thing I appreciated in the packet was Jay Remersma, finished his letter with a statement about how important this program is, but how it could be funded in different ways. And when you look at Kent County is funded entirely, privately. And so I do like that you're working towards that. And I think long-term that's a good goal. But I think that if our board chooses right now to continue to partner, I think that we need to do it very carefully and very wisely with some additional expectations. I really appreciate all the data that you've brought, and I think that is what needs to continue. And I think that's the work that will make you more successful as then you go towards, to look for other funding sources too, if you have a bigger story to tell. And so one potential thing that we could look at is do we ask you to finish raising that money, at least for the first year, before we release the county's money? So that's something for the county to consider. Also, personally, I would prefer that we not give a payment of $300,000 right now, but that we have some requirements on data and performance that you come back to us, whether it's quarterly or every 6 months or every year. And if those performance measures are met, then we'll continue, in the next year. But set up that understanding up front. And I think that's just fair to our taxpayers, because even if it's ARPA funds, those are still taxpayer dollars. Because it came down from the federal government, which, they paid into. So I think we still need to be careful regardless of what the funding source is. I think it would be helpful to know, and obviously you can't come up with all of this information right now, but just long-term, I think it'd be helpful to know, how did these households do at 6 months, 12 months, and 24 months? I think the information that you're presenting to us is a good indication that they're actually probably going to be doing fairly well. But I think that would be helpful to see. And then also, if at all possible, I really hope that you can prioritize children and families, because I think you're right. There's a lot of risks to kids when they enter a homelessness situation. And I even think about, risks of abuse, more unsafe settings that then puts them in. And so I think that it's really important that we continue to make sure that those kids are kept safe if at all possible. So just in general, and I'll put some of this in writing to you, Patrick, but I just think that there are some measurements and some data that would be really helpful for us to have, so that we're not just writing a check, but that we're truly partners in how this is done and making sure it's done in a responsible way. So
I will note, I believe the request is for 300,000 over 3 years at
Yep.
100,000 per year. So just think about that, because it could be structured with some expectations.
yes, exactly.
We have some more commissioners. Anybody else want to make a comment on this one?
Aaron, I just want to thank you for the hard work that went into this report. You've answered a lot of questions that I certainly had. I think you've demonstrated success with the program. I want to make sure we don't lose sight of the fact that if this program wasn't here, the county might not have direct cost or expenses, but there would be increased pressure on all those support systems, everything from courthouses to law to community mental health, and on and on and on. So you could almost make the case there's cost savings and coming in and doing the work that you folks are doing. I think county participation in this is a sign of leadership that is a message to the broader community as you're out there fundraising. I think there should be accountability. Reports like this are very helpful for us to gauge the success of the program. But I think we have an opportunity to lead others in this case with financial support of the program that's come back and demonstrated to us that it's effective. And I would be supporting that motion.
Yeah, Commissioner Zalstra.
One thing I've learned over the last year is let Jim go first, because he usually says what I'm thinking, and I really appreciate it. Really
Does it
appreciate
well.
your work. I think, the fact that you reached out to Quincy. I talked to him a few days ago and appreciate his letter, as well as Jay, and getting so many folks aware and interested in supportive of your work is a very positive sign. So thanks again.
Yeah. No, and I want to compliment your stewardship, because you were challenged to go dig up the numbers. And, a lot of folks that we partner with, we don't necessarily know how well they're watching the store, where the dollars went, and you rose to the occasion, came back with stats, and, making informed decisions is what we aim to do here. And you are helping that process. Thank you, Judge, for being here as well. The stories help, the context helps. I think we all learned a lot today. It's been a good discussion, and we also heard a lot from the public. So this is going to be very helpful as we go forward. So I think it's time well spent this morning.
Can I ask one more question?
Commissioner Rhodey.
So one thing that appears to be very important when you look at homelessness is support, even after, an intervention. So I am encouraged that these situations aren't, quite as drastic as some situations are, but what kind of support are you going to have? Are you going to continue to offer or require a class? Or what does that piece look like?
Yeah, so as part of the screening process, they have to complete a household budget, right? That's one of our sustainability screening measures. But then beyond that, we've just employed a life skills educator who can sit down or create classes that people could attend. So there will be a real intentional push to help people in whatever way that we notice, because each case is unique. And so in whatever way we can, we will attempt to provide some light touch support.
Okay. Yeah. And then I'm just hopeful. I know you had to go back and dig up a lot of data to answer our questions. But I'm just hopeful that going forward, you can just be collecting this as you go.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Quite a few of the churches around here offer Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University.
Yeah.
And I taught that for several years for our church and really enjoyed the interactions there. So, always utilize those assets too. Maybe you already do. So I just want to throw that
Absolutely.
out there.
That's fantastic.
Super. All right. Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to our second public comment. So we'd love to hear from you. If anybody would like to comment on today's events, you are welcome to do so now.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chairman, if I may, so today we've had this on here as a discussion item, just for clarification. Do you want us to forward this to the board agenda as an action item out of this meeting, or do you want to make a motion to that effect? I talked with Commissioner Zelstra on that, and
Yeah.
I think it'd be prudent to make this into an action item to do that if you want to take it forward.
I'll make that motion. I think, I was going to say Chair Tepos, and it's going to take me a little bit to, Commissioner Tepos is very supportive of that as well, so I'll make that motion.
I'll second
The only thing that I would say on that is I'm hopeful that I can get you some information on, what I think is going to be important to incorporate into an MOU.
Yeah, and as doing this as an action item will allow us time to prepare an action request with those considerations built in.
Okay.
All right. Well, I think we can do a voice vote on that one. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none? All right, you know what to do.
Thank you.
You bet. All right, back to the public. But that's a good thing for a lot of folks that are here today. So thank you, Administrator Waterman, for doing that. Ms. Patrick, welcome.
Good morning, Becky Patrick, Allendale. I just want to say thank you.
It's always appreciated. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of our meeting. If no one else wants to make a public comment, enjoy the rest of your day. Feel free to stick around for planning and policy. That's up next. Commissioner Barry, when would you like to start the meeting? It is currently about almost 20 after 11.
15 minutes or so, is that enough?
Let's take 15